Hare Krishna. Namaste. Chapter 6, entitled as Dhyana Yoga. Sloka 6. Bandhur ātmātmanas tasya yenātmaivātmanā jitaḥ anātmanas tu śatrutve vartetātmaiva śatruvat. In the previous sloka, the fifth sloka, Krishna said, uplift yourself by your mind. Do not fall down yourself by your mind. Using the mind, one has to uplift. One should not fall down because of the mind. The mind is your friend, and mind can also be your enemy. This is what we saw in the fifth sloka. Therefore, by making friendship with the mind, you can practice what has been explained earlier to the fifth sloka. Sixth sloka, today's sloka, here Krishna says, one who has conquered his mind, the mind is his friend. And one who has not conquered his mind, the mind is his enemy. So the difference between the fifth sloka and sixth sloka is, over there, the mind becomes a tool to uplift someone, and the same mind can become a tool for one to fall down. Over here in the sixth sloka, Krishna says, the mind has to be conquered, so the mind can become a friend. That mind which is not conquered, the same mind becomes as enemy. That's a variation between the fifth and sixth sloka. So one must win over the mind and take charge of it. That's a message in the sixth sloka. And a main question that is being answered in the sixth sloka is, how can same mind can do both roles as friend and enemy? I have enemy, I know who they are. I have friends, I know friends who they are. But how can the same mind, which is one mind, can be friend as well as an enemy? So the response is, it is certainly possible, because the mind takes a different state. One time as friend, another time as enemy, and so forth. We can learn this from Ramayana, where Mandodari, Ravana's wife, laments over the dead body of Ravana, crying out, saying that no one can conquer you. In the past, by performing a great penance, you conquered the senses and conquered the three worlds. Now, those same senses have conquered you, which became cause of your fall down. So we can see here, the same senses and mind can be friend or can be enemy. It depends on how we handle them. If we go under the direction of the mind, then they're going to pull us in a wrong direction. If the mind goes under our instruction, then it will uplift us. So let's see the word by word meaning of this sloka. Yena, by whom? ātmāna, by himself, that is the living entity. Atma, the mind. Jitaḥ, conquered. Tasya ātmānas, to such a person. Atma, the mind. Bandhur, will be a friend. Anātmanas, to him who has failed to conquer the mind, ātmā the very mind, śatru-vat, like an external enemy, śatrutve, hostile, vartetātmaiva, remains. Here, the Atma is interpreted as mind. That is, the mind is a friend, also an enemy. If we interpret the term as Atma as self, each time it appears in this verse, then the meaning of this sloka will become like the self is a friend of the self and self is an enemy of the self. Then it's more confusing and is not appropriate in this context either. Therefore, the right interpretation is Atma as mind. That is how it's been interpreted by many acharyas. Now let's see the translation. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. And we have practical experience to agree to this sloka. It is the case where we always want to do good things, but then we do something else. For example, after hearing Bhagavad Gita, after hearing about yoga, one might decide, let me get up in the morning, early morning, say 4 o'clock, and start practicing yoga, or start practicing chanting, or get engaged in puja. Let me get up early in the morning. I set up the alarm, and at around 4 o'clock, when the alarm goes on, then we snooze it and say, let's start from tomorrow. So these are all coming from the mind. It's the same mind was deciding to get up in the morning, and it's the same mind in the morning says go to sleep. When things happens like that, like this, we need to be fully aware that the mind is our slave, and we need to take charge of the mind, our mind, and give instructions to the mind. This mind is also given to us by the Lord, but the purpose that it's been given to us is to think about Him and use it for His service. If we do that, then we can conquer the mind. If we don't control the mind and abide to the instructions of the mind, then we become the slave of our mind and go in the direction that mind pulls us, which is mostly keeping us away from Krishna. Therefore, the purpose of practicing yoga is to control the mind in order to make it a friend, so we can discharge our duty as human. The duty of any living entity is to cultivate bhakti towards Krishna and return to Him. Unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga is simply a waste of time. And for one who cannot control his mind, considered to be living with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and his mission are spoiled. Well, now one might ask a question after hearing this statement. Should I start yoga after controlling the mind, or should I start yoga to control the mind? The answer is already given starting from the first sloka of this chapter. It emphasizes that one must continue doing their karma yoga and practice yoga that Krishna is recommending here, the dhyana yoga. And this stage is Aruroksha stage. By doing so, one will be able to control the mind. And after that, when one is in the stage of Yoga Rudha, one can still continue their Karma Yoga, if one so desire, but in the form of worship to the Lord. By following the Karma Yoga and getting engaged in Dhyana, what happens is the Karma Yoga done with proper mood and following the principles of Karma Yoga, it helps to remove the obstacles that stops us to further proceed. In this way, we can control the mind to bring to a focal point. Therefore, Krishna strongly emphasizes in this first to sixth sloka that one should continue doing Karma Yoga, that is Nishkama Karma Yoga. To him whose mind has been conquered with regard to sense objects, the mind becomes his good friend. He whose mind has not been conquered in this manner, to him such an uncontrolled mind becomes an greatest enemy, like the other enemies that we might have externally. Bandhur ātmātmanas tasya yenātmaivātmanā jitaḥ anātmanas śatrutve vartetātmaiva śatruvat. Namaste. Hare Krishna.